want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
Aye, aye, Admiral Butthead.
So don't mess with me.
I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
I pray for the president all the time.
Ugh, back to the lock with you, Nessie.
I've now been in 57 states.
He's what we designate as the crummy moronic type.
We didn't crawl out from under no rocks. We didn't have no tails. We didn't come from monkeys, you atheistic pinko meathead.
Donald Trump no longer has the capacity to break my heart.
I'm not pissed. You've seen me pissed. This is way, way beyond pissed.
Now it's a party!
Don't try to be funny, will you, meathead?
Welcome, brother, to the Brotherhood of Liberty show on our Sunday night recap and predictions for the following week. How you doing, brother?
Fine. Welcome, brother. And to all our other brothers of liberties and our sisters of liberties.
Yes.
In particular, one sister, Little Peg, who's running for the campaign.
Which, by the way, John, I think we have to throw down the endorsement for her and Ludmilla. I think we have to throw that endorsement down right now about them running for office.
Is that your cell phone?
Yeah, it was actually. And it was the candidate herself. She was texting me back on something.
Should I turn mine down?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Okay.
But we should throw our endorsement right now for the new town council, seeing as other groups of people want to throw their endorsements in. We will throw ours towards our sister Peg Baldini and Ludmilla Masiak, who's a professor, doctor. She's
and what's the campaign's title?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for them. I would instead, seriously, instead, I would like to arrange an interview with them, both of them, this way, digitally, so that we can actually show it one night and, let them speak.
How about this? It's Make Newton and America Great Again, or MANGA.
I think
now it's out there. Now it's hers.
I think they really have to make Newton great again because, not to belabor the point, but I know when I was a kid and, I would walk the streets with our parents, the street was filled and it's not anymore. The stores are empty.
Half the stores are empty in Newton, which is horrific. It's horrific.
It is horrific. It's damaging to the economy. But that's for another show. To another show.
Little Peg, yes.
Yeah.
Peg.
So tonight's episode is about, we're going to have a conversation about President Trump's historic deal with Israel and the U.A.E., United Arab Emirates, and we're also going to go dive deep into that a little bit. We're also going to have a little discussion on, after that, we're going to talk about of course, we heard the news this week of Biden and the Willie Brown's ex-girlfriend, who can't say her name right, so why say it? We'll just use it for another descriptive term.
Remember,
Kamala.
James. No, it's not. It's Kamala. As in communist. Communist Kamala. That's the way to remember. Not camel.
I didn't even think of that, brother.
Kamala.
You're a genius.
Thank you, brother.
I didn't even.
That's
think
what I need to hear.
That. You're a genius.
Ready? Namaset, brother. Namaset.
All right. So
Kamala. Don't get you because you're racist if you say Kami as in camel or camel hoe or camel or capitalist. So don't be a racist.
All right, brother. Sorry, we've kicked over to our to the video kicked in there. Sorry, that was of the president's. He was talking to the people, the media, but anyway. So yes, we do have to do Kamala, and we also have a very special review of Uncle Tom, which is Larry Elder's project on Black America and where we are. It really speaks a lot to today and how we got to where we are today and while we're having these conflicts. So I'm going to do a review. I'm also going to talk about other people's review as well. And I watched the video 3 times, very impressed by it. Larry Elder was the executive producer of it. He did a great job putting it together. Of course, you know that the left wing is is trying to tear it down as some propaganda, but we'll get into that. It's not propaganda. It's the truth. It's the truth that finally needs to come out, and I believe it should be some kind of required. It should be some kind of required watching. Even if because you're not getting this side of the story when you go to school. You're getting the other side of the story, and you're not. It's all been marked up with lies and misinterpretations, and it's like basically the 1619 Project where you see that it's a reinterpretation of what the real history is. And so it's time for us to stand up to it, and it's good that Larry Elder is doing just that. And finally, of course, we have our editor's corner, which usually would be talking about the VP pick. And this week we were going to do, because we were planning it, and it's such a great little thing about the VP pick, we're still going to do it. Even though it's not going to happen, we know who it is. We're still going to talk about the VP pick. So, having said that, brother, let's start off with our first one, shall we?
Dive in.
Unless you got anything to say before we go.
No, let's dive right in.
All right, let's dive right in. Here we go. So this is President Trump speaking about it. I have him muted so that we can talk. Now, it's very important to note what this deal is. It's very.
What are we talking about, brother?
So we're talking about the historic deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, where the United Arab Emirates is going to recognize the state of Israel. And keep in mind, but prior to this, there's only two countries in the Middle East that recognize the state of Israel. Of course, they are Jordan and Egypt. The rest of the Middle East has never refused. They've refused because of the great Muslim and Israel hatred that we have going on there. Israel's been invaded several times. I mean, honestly, I can't remember the number of times it's been that many, and they've won every time handily. They've turned back the Muslim armies each time, and this is a religious war. So the importance of why do we have Middle Eastern problem is because it's a religious war, and you have two religions that are in contention over the same space.
Now, before you get into that, James, who is in Israel again?
That would be the Jewish people.
Whoa, brother! I don't want to say anything, but you just dropped a hard J. You dropped it without alerting all the sorry to say woke-tards who are listening, who might be listening, who would be offended by the hard J. But I guess you're going to have to use repeatedly Charlie from Sunny in Philadelphia's hard J to describe the people who live in Israel. So I guess we're just going to have to use that word Jews. But of course, know that we love Jewish people, and we're saying it with love, not woke-tards would say, as that we are an anti-Semite.
Contrary to what the left is saying, this is a really big, good deal for not only these two countries, but for the entire region. And it was brought to you courtesy of President Trump, not President Clinton, Hillary Clinton, that is, not President ex-President Obama, not wannabe Sleepy Joe president. None of these people. It was by President Trump. And just on a side note, this is proof that his method does work. That his critics have been slamming him. That he could never ever get a deal. He did, and he got a very good deal. So this deal is, what is it? It's recognition. Just today, actually, the two connected their telephone lines, so that you can call now from Israel to the U.A.E. and reverse. Now you can also fly directly to these countries in between them. So flights are now going to open up. A lot of there's going to be technology transferred. I'm sure this is going to help the U.A.E. because of the Jewish. The Israel has this great, strong ability to get water and to have water. This is going to help out another desert country, the U.A.E., and possibly the rest of the region when that information spreads and they're able to use that technology in other areas. So of course the left wants to detract. Well, these people were talking about this a lot before. So this is not really anything changed. And the deal that Israel made was they weren't going to annex anything for the West Bank for right now. They're holding off on that. They were giving an official hold off. So, but this is, of course, this is what the left is going to do. Their mindset, they just want to, because it's, Orange Man bad, Trump is evil, and there's no way that he could create something that would be considered good. So of course they wanted to hammer him. So I looked it up, and I wanted to get some more independent thoughts. So I went to it's called, where's its name? The Jewish Telephonic Authority, I think. I think that's what they're. I'm trying to see it here. I didn't print on the paper that I have, but they did a great article on it. They came up with 5 winners and 4 losers. So I wanted to talk about who the 5 winners and the 4 losers that they came up with. And I think it's a good. And I'm going to add one of the losers. So here I'm going to read through that their winners are. Winner 1, a long view of Israel history. Now they talk about for the 72 years, this is a win for them because this is, again, like I said before, this is an Arab country that's willing to recognize them as a country. And by the way, the U.A.E. is historically now been at odds with what other great country, brother, in the Middle East? What other countries the U.A.E. has been pushing hard back against?
Iran.
It's a dozen. Yeah, it's a dozen miles across their strait. Iran. And so this is good. This is good.
I paid attention this time.
I'm glad.
Sorry, I didn't know the punchline.
This is good because these 2 countries have a similar interest in not getting Iran, not allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon, which is aligned with our foreign policy, unless you're ex-President Obama or a wannabe Hillary Clinton presidency. So another winner is Benjamin Netanyahu, who is struggling, I guess, within his own country because he was under, the people in his country are going after him for corruption and a whole bunch of other things. But this helps him out because he really, he's sitting there, he's making nice with their country's enemies, and he's also able to ensure the peace. Which prime minister has been able to do that without having a war? He did this without having one person die. So that's great news.
Bibi, we love Bibi, Pennsylvania native, Cheltenham.
We do. He's a good man. United Arab Emirates is another winner because, of course, what we talked about, the technology, the transfer, of money. This is a great big deal for them because they're only gonna go stronger. Because now they're only one of a dozen different countries in that region who are not making a deal with Israel. So they're one of the great market for the United Arab Emirates to get into, as well as for Israel to get into. And of course, the last big winner, the next winner is Donald Trump, because obviously this is a big win for him. He had Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, do most of the lifting for him in his place, but there was a big team, and you can see it in the video that's playing in the background there. The large team that was working together to try to get this done, but Jared was one of the top leaders on this, along with the president, and of course the liberal Zionists who have built up this idea of wanting to have peace within the within Israel and with the West Bank. This is one of the things that they're happy about. But it also says that they're one of the losers, again, because the liberal Zionists are the ones who want to push for letting Palestine have its own state, and this is also kind of like a throwback in their face because the Netanyahu's is this big guy who's Israel strong is Israel first is the one who did it. Just like it's not good for them to see Netanyahu winner because he's their political enemy. So another loser they're saying is the Palestinians, but I think this is actually a win for them because they get a guaranteed get to keep their homeland without being annexed. Another loser is the Israeli opposition. Again, the people who are trying Netanyahu, who want him to have all kinds of problems, and of course the settlers and their American supporters. But I think the biggest loser, to use the phrase, the biggest loser in this is in fact, John, the Democrats. The Democrats who have to run from this good deal, otherwise they look like Trumpites. So to that, I will move on to the next piece of this because we're moving smoothly on it. There actually, I want to single out a couple of congressmen and their responses. I want to talk about, of course, AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, and her knucklehead response. Josh Gottheimer, who's been definitely he's a supporter of Israel, but he's been a strong supporter of Israel, but he's also been very much challenged with following in anything with Trump. He had to impeach Trump in order to keep his base happy. He had to do a whole bunch of things to keep his base happy. And he presents himself as a moderate, which he's not. He's a left winger because he votes with the left wingers to keep his job. Such a politician. And then I want to talk about Gottheimer's opponent. So first, Ocasio-Cortez and her collection of fellow representative knuckleheads. They came up with this alternative plan that is the Israel Annexation Non-Recognition Act, which in essence, if you read it, it comes out and says if Israel tries to annex it. By the way, these are the people who came up with that boycott, the whole boycott thing against Israel. The racist, bigoted.
BOBS.
Yeah. This is the same. This is the same collection of knuckleheads, plus others who aren't in this pile. These people have come out very, very much for wanting to threaten Israel, our strongest ally in the region. These guys want to threaten with losing all kinds of support from the United States if they cross the line. Remember the red line, John, back in the ex-President Obama's reign. He had that thin red line over there in Syria, and it kept on getting crossed. I wonder if this is the same kind of line. But they can't. Again, this is another case of Orange Man bad. Can't let Trump win. It's another example of having to make the president look bad. So there's that. So Gottheimer, who very strong. He gets. By the way, John, Gottheimer gets a ton of money from Israel's political PAC. He gets a ton of money from them, and he says he has this long article. I mean, I'm not even going to hold it up, but it's at least 4 paragraphs long. And not once does he mention President Trump's name. Not once. He talks about the deal as being good. He talks about it being historic. He talks about it being advanced cooperation and peace between our ally Israel, and things like this. The recent announcement of the normalization of relations between the Emirates and Israel is a promising development towards peace and stability in the Middle East. Not one bit of credit to President Trump. Of course, we know the reason for that is because in his own district, the 5th district, if he mentions Trump's name, he's going to find it very difficult for his Democrat supporters to come out on Election Day. And his opponent, Frank Pallotta, who's running against him on a Republican ticket, my former opponent, and is now the guy who's carrying the flag for the Republican Party, full disclosure. He's very clear. Thank you to President Trump for helping to broker this historic deal. This is a great day for the security of Israel and overall peace in the Middle East. Again, notice that he mentioned President Trump, giving credit where credit is due, whereas Gottheimer's so cowardly and so craven, he can't even mention the president's name. And so this is by the way, it's also on the Inside New Jersey website for the press release if you're interested, and you can find Ocasio-Cortez and Gottheimer's. You can find their bit at their House website. I think that's pretty good, bro. I think we got a lot of good information. Yeah.
James, I would like to make a point on that.
Please go ahead.
Point to be made. At what point can we correctly call a pig a pig? Well, we're not going to say anything else. An apple an apple. When do the Democrats get to be called on the fact they're a bunch of anti-Semites? And I just want to bring up a couple quotes because we like to talk history here. These are the actual quotes from Marx, which is, of course, the hero of Adolf O. Cortez there and little Ilham, right? And this is the socialism. This is the guy who invented communism and socialism. And here's what he said about Jewish people. Now I'm going to not use the N word, which he refers. It shows that he's both a racist and a Semite. This is a guy who, if he was alive today, would be on Megan's Law for what he did to his maid, and yet is put up by people on the left again and again and again as their version of Jesus. Okay, here's what he says. He says about this is for instance in an 1862 letter to Frederick Engels. Marx describes a leading 19th century German socialist, Ferdinand Lassalle, in this following way: the Jewish, then he uses the N-word, Lassalle, fortunately departs at the end of this week. It is now absolutely clear to me that is both the shape of his head and his hair texture shows he descends from the Negroes who joined Moses' flight from Egypt, unless his mother or grandmother on the paternal side hybridized with a, again, N-word. Now, this combination of Germanness and Jewishness with, a primarily Negro substance creates a strange product. The pushiness of the fellow is also N-word like. Now he goes on in what is a essay on the Jewish question in 1844 to describe this about the Jews. What is the secular basis of Judaism? Practical need, self-interest. What is the worldly cult of the Jew? Haggling. What is the worldly god? Money. Money is the jealous God of Israel, before whom no other God may exist. Now, this is the guy who they proudly go around saying they follow? Marx? Karl Marx, really. So
Right.
when the Black Lives Matter say that they're avowed Marxist, and when good old Ocasio-Cortez says she's a socialist, and of course, socialism is a halfway point to communism. It was a technical term created by Marx to describe it. This
Right.
is the guy that they're putting up as their font of all knowledge. So if the Democratic Party has now become completely socialist, when is it fair for us to call them what they are? Anti-Semites, like their leader over here, Karl Marx. Just a question to put out there to you, brother. Just a question.
It's, I mean, I seriously, like we did last week when we came up with nicknames or new names for their party, or was that 2 weeks ago? We had some very solid names for them, and maybe we should incorporate some of these anti-Semite ideas and beliefs that they seem to be espousing when it comes to their background and their past. Because if you're gonna follow socialism, if you're gonna follow Marxism is your god, then you have identified yourself as hating Israel, hating Jews, and hating a large segment of our society. So very good point, brother. Very good point. By the way, only if you're done. Are you finished?
No, I'm done.
All right. So we have a Samantha Pappy wanted to know, hey, what about me? She posted. I put her up on the screen there for you to see, brother.
Oh, she wants to be she is a sister of liberty.
Yes,
she's definitely
okay,
a sister. More likely she's a godmother of liberty. We'll promote her even higher, right?
Okay. All right. So now we cleared that up. I hope that we got that cleared up.
Right. Sister of liberty.
Sister of liberty. That works. So next subject, brother, is we're talking about Biden and Kamala. Kamala. Thank you. So the announcement is that this week we have the two people who have locked up the most black men in the entire country are now running on the Democratic ticket. We have Joe Biden, who's one of the people responsible for the reform bill back in the 90s, which was targeting these large black men who were dangerous, to lock them up. 3 strikes rules. By the way, as a quote from the Uncle Tom movie, some irate woman she was very angry when she was talking about the Dreamers. She said, "When my people get locked up, we get 3 strikes. When when my people do something wrong or break the law, we get 3 strikes. When the Dreamers break the law, they get amnesty." So I mean, we want to throw that in there. I was going to throw that in there later, but think that this kind of plays too, because here we have Sleepy Joe Biden, who's made himself the person, to be the leader, and he claims that he's such a supporter of black people and their families and such. Yet he is one of the instruments behind getting that bill, that horrible bill in the 90s.
James, to be fair, he was kind of scared of Corn Pop. Corn Pop was a bad dude.
That's an excellent point. And then there's all that conversation where he talks about,
cockroaches and black people and corn. Right.
Running
Corn Pop was a bad dude, James.
And then you got Kamala, who is like, she's this DA from LA who was hell bent on locking up black people for gun crimes. And I wasn't able to get the video, but there is a video out there that's kind of makes you wonder if she's really anti-abortion. You can see the tongue in cheek here. That she's anti-abortion because she says that we should take people's guns because it's going to save the children. I wish I had that video. I wish I had that.
She's
video.
also, of course, is famous for prosecuting marijuana cases. And back in the day, those mandatory minimums, people were locked up for years on that stuff. Years. Well, that's the crime bill from Biden, but her herself as a DA and as the Attorney General in, I think, San Francisco, but also for the state. She was Attorney General for the state. Promulgated the guidelines where they were locking people up, and then bragged about smoking it herself. So, hypocrite.
Yeah. Which she bragged about it, listening to a song that didn't even exist.
Yeah.
That she supposedly smoked. She did graduation after graduation, and she didn't graduate. She graduated in '86, and the song didn't come out to '91 or '92. Like, whoa! I mean, that was one hell of a trip. I got to tell you. Must have been one big giant Mary Jane, if you know what I mean. So brother, do you have any thoughts on what's going to happen with this campaign between these two? Because every video that I've seen, it's like a train wreck just waiting to happen. And I will say I do have a theory as to why they have Kamala and Joe Biden and mail-in voting. Do you want to cover that right now?
Well, why don't you hold on to that, because it's already half an hour and you still have Uncle Tom to get to, and you were really moved by that movie. Why don't you throw it in then so we can get to it?
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
I'll gladly talk about Uncle Tom. So what is Uncle Tom? It's a movie that was, like I mentioned before, that was done by Larry Elder, among other people. He has it's got a bunch of prominent black conservative activists, people like Jesse Peterson, people. Sorry, as I'm distracted here. I'm trying to get it up on the screen for us.
Candace Owens, and of course,
Owens,
and it was originally produced by Don Lorenzo himself, Larry Elder. Right. Who's apparently also been welcomed into the Italian community, and we could do that for him. I don't know, because we love Don Lorenzo.
It also has the late great Herman Cain, which I'm going to start off with one of his quotes, because I have 2 pages or page and a half of quotes. Oh, no, it is 2 pages. 2 pages of quotes from the video. Watched it several times. Was very very moved by it. I felt like it was something that and they say this in the video, that if this was, it's like going, I don't remember who said it, it's like, this is having this conservative awakening is like finding there's a whole half of your family that's never invited to any parties, and you never know about them until you actually seek them out yourself. And part of that reason is because of what the media does, is it's very instrumental in shutting people down and shutting these conservatives down. And part of that reason is that's where the phrase Uncle Tom comes from, because they're trying to belittle these people. And at one point, and you'll probably remember this, John, when they're talking about Kanye giving President Trump a hug and being very enthusiastic about seeing him. I'm sorry, actually, I have 3 pages worth of notes. And I'll tell you some of the things that they said about Kanye. They said he was off his meds. Don Lemon said it was what a minstrel show. Kanye in front of all these white people embarrassing himself. Others said Kanye is sick and off his meds. Dr. Phil says he really has a problem pumping the brakes mentally and emotionally. Other persons said maybe he was missing his medication. Fredo says Kanye has struggled in admitted diagnosis for personal mental health issues. This is the minorities shouldn't think this way. They must think with Democrats is the message that the media does to these conservatives who, and here Ben Carson, he's on the screen right now. This guy's a neuroscientist, right?
Brain surgeon,
right? And the clown from not Saturday Night Live, the clown from the Jon Stewart show. What was that? What's that stupid show?
Jon Stewart.
The Daily Show. The guy who took Jon Stewart's job. He's in there mocking. He's mocking Ben Carson because he's sounding like there he is right there. He's mocking,
Trevor Noah.
Yeah, Trevor Noah is mocking him.
Moron.
Mocking Ben Carson because he's smart. He's educated. But he grew up.
That's the IQ of a gnat.
He grew
mocking somebody with the IQ of a genius.
The whole point is they're saying he's not black enough, even though he grew up in the ghetto, even though he grew up in poverty and raised himself up. They're saying he's too stupid to go out there and run with the department that Trump has given him because he doesn't have any experience.
Department.
The man's he's a brain surgeon, and he's not smart enough to run a stupid bureaucracy for the federal government. Give me a break. Of course. Why? Because he's a black man who is supporting President Trump and is a conservative. That's why. It's not because of his smarts or his ability. It's because of the color of his skin, and he's not staying in line. This is the message of the entire video. But it's clear with Ben Carson in particular that when they mock him. And another instance in this was when another can't remember the other. There's another person who was running. It was Ben Carson. Ben Carson said something about how black people, when they were slaves, they were immigrants. He said, but by the way, the point is, he said the same thing that President Obama said up to 11 times. And when Ben Carson says it, he gets destroyed in the media. And when ex-President Obama says it, it's like he didn't say anything. Nothing going on over here, folks. Keep on walking. But it's almost the same exact thing. Why? Because of the hypocrisy of the media. So I want to get to some of the things. Herman Cain. He says, my guiding lights is faith, belief in myself, and a belief in the United States of America. And he was taught that by his father, which I thought was an amazing tribute to the fact that his father, he worked 3 jobs until he could live off of 2. He worked 2 jobs until he could live off of 1. This is a man who worked his entire life. And one of the driving themes in this whole thing, John, is that through much of the entire video, they made a very strong premise that prior to the Great Society, prior to LBJ's Great Society, we see the black community pulling itself up during the Jim Crow era, during the time that it's really bad. The numbers are, find them right here. The numbers are.
Use a marker next time there, James, so you can see.
Yeah, no, I got it. No, actually, I used the highlighter.
Okay.
Before the war on poverty, 87% of blacks, by the way, that's the Great Society. Before the war on poverty, 87% of blacks lived below the federally defined level of poverty in 1940. So in 1940, 87% of blacks were below the poverty line. By 1960, that number had decreased to 47%. In 20 years, it was the largest economic change. By the way, if the black community at the time was a nation in the world at the time, it would have been the 13th ranked country in the world. That's how good it was getting for them during the worst time. And I want to also add to this point where Robert Woodson, he says, a lot of people say the violence that we're seeing today in the streets is a legacy of the Jim Crow era and slavery. But he points out during the 30s and the 40s, the racism was enshrined in law, and no black, there was no black representatives. And in the face of these inequalities, the black community had the highest marriage rate of any group in society. Institutions were anchored. Elderly could walk within their neighborhoods without fear of being assaulted by grandchildren. Business formation rate was high, and if they were able to accomplish buildings of hospitals, dental schools, hotels, movie theaters, vaudeville theaters. If you're able to accomplish that and not engage in the kind of self-destruction, how can you explain that away, that time period of Black American history, and say, oh, it's only because of racism and the Jim Crow and the slavery issue that people are so violent today? It's got nothing to do with it. They're not connected, and that's the point that Robert Woodson is very strongly trying to make in this as part of it. And I'll go even further. Damien B. Felder says the welfare state is slavery 2.0. And I want to get to, John, I got to tell you, I got to send you the DVD, but it's on back order. That's how popular this is. The up until 1962-63, had 85% of Black families had a man and woman raising children. After welfare, after LBJ's destructive Great Society program, he's separating the work from the income, men from families. The out-of-wedlock births went from less than 25% to 70%. That's disgusting. And speaking of births, let's talk about Margaret Sanger, because one of the things that has been hidden by a lot of the modern day schools, the modern day colleges, the modern day media. One of the things that they hide is what's been 52% of all Black pregnancies end up aborted. That's 1,000, John. You ready for this? 1,786 a day. That's 20 million since 1973. And it's done. This is Larry Elder. He says certain people were denigrate. They got Margaret Sanger. He got Margaret Sanger Jackson in this. Chad O. Jackson says Planned Parenthood of then or today, and I'm paraphrasing this, they're able to Trojan horse the Black community, and they deliver the message that they're for women's health, they're for the Black community, but they're killing off over half the population of babies. This is inexcusable, and for the Democrats to be supporting this, and when the AC when they would try to get parentage, in other words, to say who the dad is in a baby's, when they were having the baby, when the baby was being born, the ACLU would say, no, you can't do that. You can't do a paternity test because that's a violation of privacy. This is a real eye opener for a lot of people. Here I am, John. I'm a history guy. They talked about stuff that I know about, like Black Wall Street and a lot of other things, and like the Jim Crow laws. I know what those are. I understand that most of the Republicans, there was the largest group of Republicans who held office the largest group of Black men who held office were Republicans prior to the Jim Crow discrimination. I understood that the Democrats were voted, 0 votes for the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment, which is all the ones that help Black families rise up from slavery.
The anti-slavery movement.
The anti-slavery movement. No Democrat voted for that, and we also, you and I both know that Woodrow Wilson is the Democrat who was the most racist president in the history of the United States. He gets a mention in here too, and we also know that the people who were the instruments of Jim Crow were the Democrats. We also know that Al Gore's father was part of the largest and longest filibuster against Black civil rights in the 60s. And we know that. I know that. You know that because we're history people and we've studied this. John, this is the kind of stuff that we are not teaching our kids. And when you say the Democratic Party of today is not the same as the Democratic Party back then, I got to tell you, these guys make the very strong case that it's not. They say it's the same hustle. I'm going to point out that this is what Candace Owens so eloquently says, and I'm going to paraphrase her. You got Jay-Z, you take away all the fathers. I'm paraphrasing what she said. Take away all the fathers. You take away the men who teach these young boys how to be men. And what do they have as role models? They have role models. They have these athletes. They have people who are, the gangbangers. They go into these gangs to look for fathers. They listen to this racist music, this rap music, which talks about raping your sister or your mother, killing your family, killing whoever. They have this as their idol. These rappers and these athletes, these bad athletes, the ones who do things wrong, they're the ones who are the idols for these young black men. And so when you wonder why they don't come into their own, it's quite clear that you have people like Jay-Z, and she says Jay-Z, who's always been a drug dealer, he's very open about it, having sold the black community crack cocaine when he was living in the projects. That's how he got ahead. So he was selling something that's harming the black community, and he's still doing that, and it's flying off the shelves. It's victimhood. And then she goes on, and you'll love this, brother. Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick does the same exact hustle. A half-white man who has picked out his hair to be an afro, to be black because victimhood is hot. Colin Kaepernick is making a ton of money. Jay-Z is making a ton of money. Is Black America any better? The communities are still hurting, and they get to line their pockets, and we accept the same kind of crack cocaine. The things that are harming Black Americans, absent fathers and illiteracy rates. Illegal immigration ranks high and abortion ranks high. If I had to make a list of 100 things that are harming Black America, white supremacy and white nationalism would not be on it. That's Candace Owens, actually, exactly from her speech, which she sat in front of the Congress and said. I also have one last one that I wanted to bring out. The problem is, brother, if I highlighted it, I'd have to highlight the whole damn thing because this is the entire
multiple
thing.
Colors today, brother. Multiple colors.
I have to say, this is very good, very very well researched, very well done.
Wait, while you're looking for it, who is Uncle Tom? Uncle Tom is the title character of Harriet Beecher Stowe's 1852 novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. And, actually Lincoln used to, I think when he met her, he said, you caused the war because basically it humanizes Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom is the hero. I remember in my history class going, what? Uncle Tom is the hero. And back in 1980, and anybody who actually read it was found out that Uncle Tom is the hero of it because he lays down his life to save people. And it's been used as a pejorative because he does it in a non-resisting way, in a Christian-like way, because it's a Christian book, basically, and a Christian morals. And of course, slavery is against the exact words of Jesus Christ, John 15:15. But so go ahead. Did you find your thing there, brother?
I got two more things I want to say.
You said one.
I lied. Jesse Lee Patterson. When I turned 30, I started asking questions like, if the white man is holding me back because I'm black, this is his exact quote, why is it that they're not holding Jesse Jackson back and his family? The so-called NAACP and all of them. Their kids went to the best schools. They had fathers and mothers in their homes, and they were doing very well. And so I wonder, why is it that they're not being held back? Those people who are black, if they're holding me back because I'm black. And that's why when I realized I've been lied to and everything started changing. So he's like, why are all these black people who are in the NAACP, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, why are their families doing? But they say the white people are holding us back, brother. And the reason is, why are they doing so well? Why aren't they being held back? It's because they were lied to. Because the black community has been lied to. So the last thing I want to close with is something from the guy who opens up at the beginning of the Uncle Tom movie, Chad O. Jackson. Before I talk about Cloud and the Piven, which we're going to be talking about, Chad O. Jackson. He was a Democrat. He voted for Obama. He said step one on his journey to becoming who he is today, he became a Christian in 2009. He said that somebody said to him, he said, the reason why I voted for Obama was the Bible says we should help. He goes, I'm a Democrat. The reason why I'm a Democrat is the policy of the Democrats is pro-Medicaid and government benefits that can help poor urban communities. And he's like, isn't that what the Bible says? The Bible says you're supposed to help people. And his friend, his Republican friend says, well, was it talking about the government helping people, or was it talking about you helping people? So that was step one. And of
So
course,
what did he do?
He said it's talking. He reread. He went back to the Bible, and he said it says clearly that you, not the government, is supposed to help other people. So I mean, in other words, it's a cop out to let the government do it, because it's supposed to be you facing the challenge, not the government. Step two was he was challenged also to read by the same friend, I think, to read both parties' platforms and see what their lineup is. And he realized after he read the Republican ones, he read the Democrat one, he said, I'm a Republican. And then he said the third thing, the final nail in the coffin, was he started researching the Democratic Party. And you know what he's going to say. I know you do, brother. He found Margaret Sanger. He found the birth of the KKK, and he found the Jim Crow South, Black Wall Street. All these things were done at the hands of Democrats. And this is why the Democrats of today and then are the same. They've learned that, this is his exact quote, they've learned to play the game better. And that's my review. I want to, before I go to Cloud and then Piven.
All right. Wait. You said one, then you changed it to two, and now it's three. Okay.
I told you it would give me a half hour on this.
I can't keep my doctor either. I can't trust anybody on TV. I can't keep my doctor. Can't keep my medical plan.
Technically, I'm only on 17 minutes.
All right.
Technically, but I wanted to. I'm going to have to remove this and share another screen here from one of the reviews that I was able to find, because I think this speaks to what we see in America today. Why the Democrats are so confused about, and it's, I mean, I apologize for here. Maybe I can make it bigger, but I apologize for how small it is. But the highlighted there, it says, all I can say is, why is this awful piece of right-wing propaganda rated so high? So, of course, brother, it's rated high because it's the truth. And this is the same thing that's going on throughout the entire country. And this is why you and I have one of our beliefs and one of our predictions is President Trump is going to do very well in this election, because more people now are keeping their mouths shut about what they think because of all the turmoil, but they're also much more engaged and much more angry than they were back in 2016. And it's a bigger crowd of people. So that's, this is why this guy gave it a 1 star. Why'd you give it 1 star? Because it doesn't agree with what you believe. That's why you give it 1 star. Not because it's not the truth, not because of any other reason, because you don't want to believe it. So let's talk about Cloud and Piven, John. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Listen, I know you're like, will he stop talking?
No. No, go ahead, brother.
No, this is a big deal.
I'm glad we got started early, because we never would have finished if we did this. Well, you said we were going to do this in our pre-meeting. So go ahead.
We did say this was going to happen. I mean, let's be honest. We did say this was going to happen.
I'm glad you're moved by this, by Don Lorenzo. I love Don Lorenzo. His father, Sergeant Major, I think, gave us that great line. Something I tell my kids, myself, I pass on to my kids: hard work wins. Don Lorenzo is the man, and he put this together, this movie, and it is truly a great movie. I'm glad you were moved by it. I still haven't got my copy, but why were you going to send me my copy?
They're back ordered.
Yeah. Don't forget, I also get cowbell, and I also get Magnum shirt. Okay,
I'll see what I can do.
All right,
I'll see what I can do. The Magnum shirts are going to definitely be something that I work on before I have to go back to work. So,
Ballistic Patriot Magnum shirt. Okay,
say Ballistic Patriot right here.
Right.
I am a Ballistic Patriot with our logo. So Clouden and Piven.
The chicken.
My idea is if you look at, first of all, their idea. There are these socialists back in the 60s. They were Columbia
professors, weren't they?
Professors from the School of Social Work, Columbia School of Social Work, and they came up with this idea that you can break the system, and then get take care of inequality in the system by breaking it and forcing the wealth distribution between the highers and the lowers in the society. And you can only do that by overloading the system, by overloading the bureaucratic system. And so that's what their plan was with welfare. They said, we got to overload welfare. And they were very good at it, to the point where they did it in New York City as an example. New York City, they recruited black people. This is where we see the large decline in fathers taking responsibility for their kids. We see a large increase.
Being allowed. We all conservatives say that, but it's being allowed to, because they tied the money to the mom, and the mom had to disavow the black father.
Right.
And so it was being allowed.
Which wasn't
every black father I ever talked to wants to be in his kid's life. They're just not allowed to.
Well, John, it's also, we learned from the movie, it's also the black family's history. 87% were married. They had, they had 75%. They had dads. This was an incredibly high number. It's actually, I think, the 87% might have been higher than white families at the time. Don't quote me on that, but it was very high, and it was one of the highest in the entire world. So, Clouden and Piven's idea was to overload the system. In New York City, they did it. They broke the system in New York City. New York City's government went into bankruptcy, and they couldn't afford it. Long, turmoil. They did what they planned to, as an example, and they tried to continue that further. So it wasn't until '92, when the system was reformed, with Clinton, Bill B.J. Clinton, and the Republican Congress, that we see any type of reform. But my point on the Clouden and Piven is, in modern day context, this is the point of the mail-in ballots. This is what we're doing. We see it here in New Jersey. It took over a month for them to be able to, to have all the votes counted. They didn't even have all the votes counted. There were many votes that were not counted. There were many people who were out there saying they didn't get their vote counted. You have one candidate in the state senate for the Republican Party saying, suing to get all these ballots counted. And it's over a month now after the election, to the point where the counties had to say, we're certifying the election no matter what. So they want to overload and break the system when we have our election in November. And by doing so, it's going to be worse than we saw in 2000 in Florida. It's going to be Florida times as many states as they can. And John, there is an actual time in history when we see this, and I think it was Harrison's election. Maybe it was, might not have been Harris. I think it was the early 1800s. And we see this.
You looked it up before the show.
I looked it up a couple of days ago. But the point is, the solution.
You wrote it down with your highlighter.
What happened was, I don't need notes. But what happened was, the Republican. And
let's put it this way: you might need notes. You don't have notes.
The point, brother, is the Republicans and the Democrats. The point of the reason why they're going to just try to ruin the election, and make it so that it needs to be decided in the House, and they need to have it decided in the House. What happened with this election in the 1800s?
Now explain to us a little bit more about that, right? About why,
because you have
how does that work constitutionally?
First, the way they did it was they had two competing certified elections going to the House. So like South Carolina, I think was one of the states, had two different versions competing, and they had like 3 states in that election for the president go be dual certifications going to the Congress, and that they said we can't use this, and so we have to null and void the entire election, and instead they had the election within the House. So their point of the mail-in voting,
which is the fallback, but constitutionally, it's the fallback.
Constitutionally, it is the fallback. It is the fallback
from all when everything else fails, when all the other procedures fail. House, the college fails, right? Yep. The college fails. It finally comes down to a vote in the House,
right? And so the mail-in voting, the single sole purpose of it is to wreck the vote turnout and wreck the vote so much so that they don't have anything counted by the prescribed constitutional date that they have to have everything certified by. And by doing so, then Nancy Pelosi can say, "Oh, we can't do it.
I'm president.
We can't do this." So no, she can't be the president. It can only be people who had gotten a certain number, majority of like they were on the ballot in those states. So it'll still be Biden, Kamala, and it'll still be Trump and Pence, but they will now be competing in the House of Representatives. And John, how do you think that's going to turn out?
Well, they won't recognize the new House, right?
Well, no, it's not going to be the new House. It's the old House is still in play until the January 20th. It'll be done because it's November. Remember, this is the lame duck session. It'll be decided in the lame duck session of the Congress, which means
here's what's will happen again. Joe will be then declared incompetent. Kamala will move up and have Nancy be her.
Well, that's what their eventually turnout will be. They're gonna put Joe Biden in to win, and he'll be the president. Give him a month, and he'll say 25th Amendment, I can't do this anymore. And then Kamala will become president, and then we have Kamala as president. She's going to pick, a vice president. Which who knows if
Michelle
she's old
Obama.
enough by then. If she's old enough, it could be AOC. John, who knows? They at this point, what rule matters? What rule?
They're
matters?
not going to follow. Yeah.
Right, yeah. What rule matters?
Yeah.
This is what we have to look for. This is my prediction if we allow mail-in voting to continue. And
that's why they're so hot for it now. And that's why they spend so much of the news pressers with Trump, trying to claim that Trump just appointed his new Postmaster General. DeJoy is his name, and he's trying to modernize it and save the post office because it's been so poorly managed throughout all the last decades. So. So they're doing hammering on him, saying it's his fault that it's not ready to take hundreds of millions mail-in votes. And are you kidding me? How's it our fault? We're not the ones doing it. We're not the ones prepared for it. And Congress won't pass the money to get it ready. So there's going to be a swamp if they do this on a national level. There's going to be a swamp in the mail that the post office is not ready for. But because he's just trying to modernize it. He's being hit for trying to slow it down, blah blah blah. All the calculated deception from the fake news, from the fake media, the propagandist media. So that's why they're relentlessly asking him questions about that, and they were too, only to be interrupted with asking him questions about the birtherism, which is going to be the attack on going forward. You will see one of the attacks on going forward is Trump the birther. But we don't have time to talk about it because you just monologued this. Monologued this to 10-17, huh?
Where we see the Democrats' sole purpose is to wreck the election so that it'll be decided in the House. This is not far fetched. It was only three states, John, in this time period. Which at the time I forget the exact numbers, but you can see it with. The states that will have the problems, of course, going to be Florida. That's going to be close. Michigan's going to be close. Pennsylvania's going to be close. Wisconsin's going to be close. So, the blue wall is going to be close. James, and every other state that's close is going to follow the same pattern. They're not going to certify it, and then the Congress is going to have to vote. The House is going to have to vote on the next president.
So it used to be you had to win plus lawyer. Now you have to win plus lawyer plus Democratic Party. But James, I really think that people are so mad that this is. Listen, Nixon was not a very attractive candidate. He never was. Yet, and it's one of the things that blew my mind when you look at the numbers. He won a Reagan-esque style landslide. And the reason why, of course, was 1968. It was burning down the cities. He ran as a law and order candidate, and that's again. I see the same. Democratic play. They want to pull this out of their playbook as oh yeah, it's a great way to win, but these are not American values. These are anti-American, hate American values, and they want to go national with it. I am convinced that when time comes, he'll lose every poll till then. Nobody's going to say it. They're going to keep their mouth shut, right? Because of political correctness, which is really censorship, and the communist socialist refusal to allow free speech. Because of that, they'll keep their mouth shut, and they will go in, just like Uncle Joe said. You will go in to that voting booth with anonymous voting, and you will grab that big R, and you will go cha-ching. and so mad at being saying thank God for anonymous voting. That's why they have to take that away from us too, right? But we're at 10:19 now, James, and we don't have time for cowbell. We don't have time for the birther. Just let me say that we'll have to do it next week, maybe. Right? You got at least one cowbell. So that was for John McCain. We're gonna have to do that next week. But also, the thing that to look for this week is they are going to go after Trump for being a racist xenophobe because of the birther problem of Kamala. It is a real thing. Eastman has a great point. She's probably not eligible for it. He has already said he's not going to make it part of the campaign at all. He's already devoured any attention. And this is a calculated deception. It's not a Republican trick. This is something they pulled on everybody from Goldwater to Romney's father on up. And people seem to forget. Birtherism was started not by any Republican. It was started by the evil one, the evil witch, Hillary, against Obama. Right. So, and if Trump is guilty of anything using against Cruz, he used it against Cruz and Obama. So he is the least racist person we've ever had as president. And that's what we're going to see in this next week as they continually hound him on your point about the mail and about the birther. That's what to look forward to for this 2 week. But at 10:21, I guess it's time for
all right, brother. Well,
time for us to go.
We will sign off.
One more thing, though. I'm glad I didn't spend 3 hours prepping for this show like you wanted me to. I didn't waste that time, right?
No, you didn't. You did good. But I spent hours and hours too prepping for this.
You could have told me.
Hey, I can't see the future. All right, brother. I love you. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
Aye, aye, Admiral Butthead.
So don't mess with me.
I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
I pray for the president all the time.
Ugh, back to the lock with you, Nessie.
I've now been in 57 states.
He's what we designate as the crummy moronic
We
type.
didn't crawl out from under no rocks. We didn't have no tails. We didn't come from monkeys, you atheistic pinko meathead.
Donald Trump no longer has the capacity to break my heart.
I'm not pissed. You've seen me pissed. This is way, way beyond pissed.
Now it's a party!
Don't try to be funny, will you, meathead?